Welcome to State of Ed, a podcast about education, inside the classroom and out. My name is Mark Isix.
And I'm Nick Simone.
How you doing today, Nick?
I'm doing pretty well. Yourself?
I can't complain. Following the crazy election news, tonight is the second Super Tuesday, and just watching how things are unfolding is very fascinating, to say the least.
No doubt about it. Should be a good day tomorrow in school.
Absolutely. I do wish I was still in the social studies classroom during this election cycle, because it would have been a blessing and a curse, because it would have been easy to have stuff to talk about every day and discuss and debate, and almost impossible to get any kind of actual content from the curriculum in, but such is life.
Yes. No, well, we are potentially living through a history that could be considered a turning point for the Republican Party. So
I think that's almost a given at this point, but it will be interesting to see how it plays out. But this is not a political podcast. This is an education podcast, although there is certainly an element of politics in education. But that notwithstanding, I know that you attended the Tri-State Technology Conference for school superintendents. Was it a summit in the Ramapo just a couple of weeks ago?
yes, it was a great opportunity. Now, it was, I believe it was probably run by or orchestrated by superintendents, but it was for teachers and principals. It was open to all educators. It was sponsored by EdSurge, and it was quite an impressive day in New Jersey. First of all, the conference was free, so that was obviously a big drawing card.
It's not often you have an impressive day in New Jersey, just for the record.
Oh, I think half of my family would beg to differ, as well as yours.
My family too.
Yeah, so but it was really an interesting setup for the conference. There was a tremendous number of I would say motivational speakers, some really great educational leaders, some superintendents who I was thoroughly impressed with their presentations. They had some student panels. They had technology experts, people from EdSurge as well. But then they really gave the educators in the audience an opportunity to spend quality time with a variety of vendors who have various programs that are available for the classroom. And the way they set it up was to, instead of just walking around aimlessly and having the presenters have to constantly review what they've said over and over again, if you remember some of the conferences you've probably been at, they set it up so that you put in your preferences, and then you got an opportunity to spend between 20 minutes and a half an hour as a small group setting with the product that was being presented.
So it was differentiated learning, basically.
Oh, I like that very, very much.
I just made that up.
So you look through. It's so overwhelming. I know you always talk about when you go to a conference, how so much of what you get, you put in a bag and you get back to school and you never even get a chance to look at it.
That's true.
I still remember I went to a conference in New Jersey as well, by the way, probably close to 10 years ago now. And I had all this information. And then a year later, I looked in my bag and I found this Schoology idea that I never really utilized. And now, of course, it's all throughout our district. As a very good learning management system. But I really was very impressed with the way they structured the day. And I think they really set the tone early on with one of the superintendents who said that, we're living at you talk about it all the time, the greatest moment technologically to be an educator. But using technology is not just digitizing your lessons. You can't be that you used to write your notes on a blackboard and then you put your notes on a PowerPoint and think that that's using technology.
Right.
We really have to revamp everything we do in the classroom if we really want to fully embrace technology. And that's really what the theme of the day was. There were products, not everything that I'd be able to use, but there were products that will grade handouts for like elementary schools teachers. There were extraordinary math products. I think that's probably the area I was most impressed with from what subject to subject standpoint. The math stuff that's out there, Mark, would really would blow your mind away.
Wow.
Like there are programs where one was called Math Space, where you can be given a problem and then you can just answer it on the tablet. You can use it on any platform, and it will then recognize your handwriting. And once you click the check, it will then make your handwriting look like it's the next line of the problem as it was typed. And if you get
Wow.
it, yeah, and if you get it correct, and she really did test my handwriting, I have to say, because I do not have the best handwriting, and it really was quite accurate. And if you get it correct, they give you the green arrow to keep going. If you get it incorrect, you have to go back a step. It gives you assistance. Mark, there's so much out
Wow.
there; it's overwhelming.
Now, what you're just to cover a couple of things, I do have a question about that. But what you had just spoken about a moment ago, in terms of people think that they're using technology when they're actually just kind of replacing what they used to do and doing it pretty much the same thing, just in a digitized or an electronic way. That reminds me of the Sammer model, and I think we maybe had spoken about this before on the show, but I'll put a link to it in the show notes. Essentially, the concept of the Sammer model and the critique that it has on how technology is implemented in education is that very often we're just simply substituting or augmenting the what we were doing in past practices, and essentially doing the same thing just with some new device or some new tool. Like you had used the analogy or the example of putting notes up on the board, and then we put notes up on the overhead projector, then we put notes up on the Proxima, now we put notes up on a $4,000 flat screen television, but all we're doing is just putting notes up,
Right.
and kids are copying it. That's just substitution. We're not, or at the very best, augmenting. We're not doing anything that we couldn't do before. And the technology is supposed to take us to that next place, that area or that space that we never could have dreamed of going without the technology. Would have been impossible to do this yesterday if not for the technology. And that's what the Sammer model is all about. So it's really talking about technology that enhances versus technology that transforms. And that's been a big push. I know we're going to talk about it in a little bit, but as we're in our district making a move to one-to-ones, my whole philosophy there is that we have to sort of change the mindset of the district and of everybody in the district, from the top to the bottom, bottom to the top, in thinking of transformative ways to utilize the technology. Otherwise, we're really going to spend a whole lot of money just substituting out, chalk for something very expensive, but not any better than chalk.
Well, and that's a great way for me to transition to what I thought was the best presentation of the day. And I will maybe send you the link for the overview of the conference so that people can see all the different programs
That'd be
that
great.
were there. But really, what you just said is, when schools invest in technology, which is a lot of money,
Millions.
yeah, you want it to be utilized properly. And in an ideal world, which just does not exist, we would be able to close down school for a full year and truly invest the time and energy into teachers being fully trained. I think you would probably agree that would be a great opportunity for us to implement school. The problem is that we can't close school for a year.
No, it's obviously impossible.
So because of that, we have to try to find ways to best prepare teachers to utilize this technology. And for the young teachers, this probably does come second nature to them. They've grown up with it. They're much more tech savvy. But you have teachers like myself and older who may not feel as comfortable with using different programs. You need some sort of guidance, and I understand that you can constantly ask your tech department, or you could ask the teachers who are more tech savvy. But what I was introduced to is this program called the site called Kite Learning, KYTE, Kite Learning. And what they've done, Mark, is they've created an online professional development platform completely geared to using technology as an educator. So what that means is, let's say you want to use something very basic like how to use Microsoft Word.
Okay.
They will have a video. So they will actually hire teachers, hire educators who are utilizing various programs, and they will create a video that could be anywhere from, let's say, 20 minutes, a half an hour, to as long as 2 hours. It can be really like an in service course.
Wow.
And it'll be broken up into segments. So you won't have to watch the entire thing at one sitting.
Hmm.
And it's a professional development. They call it professional development without the cafeteria. And the way they were great. The presenters, they were so incredible. And the way they described it is, how often do you sit in a cafeteria for an after school, faculty meeting, and you're told about this program or you're told about this product, but you never
Right.
really get the opportunity to fully learn how to utilize it. This is professional development, in cyberspace. This is a way for administrators to actually, they can assign the courses as professional development to the teachers. So you could have a class on using Google Earth. You could have a class on using the iPad in the classroom. You could have a class. I mean, they have it all broken down by subject. There's classes on teaching how to code, teaching students how to code. There are and they keep expanding
That's
their
great.
course offerings. So I may have mentioned to you last
So
year.
it's like a highly focused, highly detailed YouTube for educators, essentially.
Right. And, for kids, they can go to YouTube. They're very familiar with that. I know you often say, there's no reason why people can't learn. But for teachers who are in the course of, the craziness of the day and,
Hmm.
the job is just it's getting more and more hectic. I was just so
Absolutely.
impressed with, I mean, when you see when you see their website, it really is incredible. But I was so impressed with how it really seemed geared towards getting the teachers the assistance that they need to really implement anything in the
Hmm.
classroom technologically. And I think I mentioned to you last year that I had started to flip my classroom. And what I had used is this program called Camtasia, which allows me to make the videos.
Hmm.
Well, what they do,
So it's a screencasting software,
right.
essentially.
So what they do is they give each teacher a Camtasia, it was like a little box.
Okay.
So if they're going to show MacBook basics, then they would give that teacher the Camtasia Studio. They would create the video. They're constantly checking to make sure the videos are updated. And of course, they have to meet their standards.
Right.
So they're not just going to give it to anybody.
Okay.
And so these courses are then created. And again, they could be a half an hour, they could be an hour. And what I really, using iMovie in the classroom, or I mean, there are so many things here, Mark. I don't even know, what a fraction of them are. But I was thoroughly impressed. I really came away saying this is exactly what schools need, and it seems so user friendly and so tailor made for what that teacher who wants to use these programs but just doesn't have the time to really learn how to implement it. It really seemed tremendous to me.
That is very interesting. And no matter what, people just have to figure out what thing they feel most comfortable using right now, knowing full well that they just have to be flexible enough to know that they're going to be changing in the future as things change. There is no writing your lesson on a piece of paper and having it for the next 25 years. It's just those days are over. They never should have been in the first place. And for good teachers, for great teachers, they never subscribe to that. But it certainly doesn't exist now. It's not creating your PowerPoint, putting it on a flash drive, and just writing out the next 25, 30 years until you retire. It's totally different. And that's why I said before, we just have to not resign ourselves, look forward to or embrace the reality that everything is going to change drastically, and continue to change and change drastically as we move forward. And that's never going to stop from this point on. And it's going to happen very rapidly. So it's not going to be this generation of teachers did X and the next generation did Y, because a generation nowadays is a couple of years in terms of ideas, in terms of technology, in terms of capabilities and know-how. And that's the world that we live in. The great example I used to use in the classroom is, the Renaissance started in the 1400s and then got to England, 150 years later, in the Northern Renaissance. That kind of change would happen in about a half hour today, in terms of moving ideas around the parts of the world, at breakneck speeds. When we were growing up, there used to be, I don't know if you remember all those cheesy songs that used to come out of like Club Med and so on and so forth that people would hear when they went on vacation, and maybe a year and a half later it'd be on the radio in America. That doesn't happen anymore. We live in a global world. So Beyonce drops an album, at midnight, and it goes around the world, and it's instantaneous. That's the world that we live in, and it's just, it changes that quickly, and we have to be able to embrace that change in education. So if we're learning or we're using a particular app or idea or technology today, just know that you might be jettisoning that and moving over to something else tomorrow, because that's just how it is.
Yeah, and I would say that for the course of our career, the changes that have taken place in the classroom have been gradual. I think you go from using those
We had
carbon
one
paper,
computer in the back of the room, then you had four
right,
computers in the back of the room. Then we had a lab of computers, and then we had a cart of computers, and then we had
right,
yeah.
and but even like as basic as going from the carbon paper with the purple ink that you used to have to.
The
I
hand
mean, God,
crank.
yeah, the hand, and then you have Xerox machines, and now we put things onto websites where students can access it. But the changes have been so gradual, and at this point, we can't afford to have gradual changes anymore. It needs to be a monumental shift in how we approach the classroom.
Well, that's
And
exactly it. It's in the
yeah,
approach. It's not in. It almost doesn't even matter to some degree, even though I'm a diehard Mac head, but it doesn't even matter so much the device. What matters is the bandwidth. What matters is the capability, the access, and because there's so many different tools that level the playing field in so many different ways. Not that I'm you know not still a proponent of the Mac and the iPad platform for classroom, but because I am, but it's secondary now, because it really depends on the teacher's approach and how they're going to utilize the technology.
oh, it's all about the execution. That really is my point. That we can't just say, I'm sure schools' biggest fears are that, and we'll obviously talk about this, is that we buy these devices, but then they're not used properly, and now it's now become, instead of having a device in the classroom, it's become a really expensive notebook. And
Right.
that's what we can't afford to have. We have to be able to utilize these in a way to reach their maximum potential. And these creators of this kite learning, I feel like they get that. They really understand how difficult it is for teachers to learn how to utilize things when they're still in the middle of the craziness of their school day.
Right.
And this, and even the idea of you have a workshop after school or you have a workshop during staff development day, it's still a finite moment. But what this platform does is it extends professional development opportunities anywhere. You can do this from home. You can do
Hmm.
this at your family's house. You can do this at school. You can anywhere in the lounge and really learn how to utilize the programs properly and the
Right.
devices properly.
I'm very sympathetic toward the individuals, maybe typically the more seasoned people who have not been using technology all along, because this has got to be an absolutely frightening prospect for them, right? They're years away from retirement, so leaving is not an option. But the train is on its way out of the station, and they're really in jeopardy of being left kind of on the platform with this. No pun intended. Um, and I see it. I know you could think of the individuals in your building, as can I, and anyone listening to this. You know almost offhand who those individuals are. They're just going to have a very very tough time with this, and in some cases they won't. make the change, and they're just going to stick to their chalk and things that have worked for a long time. And there's still value in chalk, so to speak. There's still value in paper. So I don't want to create the illusion that this wipes away all the problems of the world, and all of a sudden it's because it's new, it's better. Um, and that means that everything old is bad or worse. That's not true. There's still plenty of very solid and sound teaching methods that don't necessarily involve technology, but the idea is to use those strong methods and figure out a way to incorporate technology to go someplace that you could never have gone before for the benefit of kids.
Right. And there is also the added benefit of students who cannot afford devices, students who cannot afford, the laptops or the tablets. By
Right.
providing them with one now, that opens up a whole world of what the teacher can do to connect to everybody.
Not only that, but their own lives and
Right.
their experiences as adults in this world where they're going to almost be required to use technology of some sort. Just to have that experience is tremendously valuable.
Right. Well, speaking of that, so what are your thoughts about bringing the one-to-one devices into the classroom?
Okay, well, this is something that we have spent the past several months in our district looking at, and I've been sitting on some of the committees. I know that you have been asked for your opinion in terms of this. You've been part of a pilot for surfaces, and I know where our district is moving in a different direction at this point, away from that. But I'm excited about it. Concerned at the same time. I want to be optimistic, but I'm cautiously optimistic, just because I know that there will be some people who will take this and run, and they will fly and soar with it, and for other people it will be a paperweight. Um, so those are the polar ends, and that's true of pretty much anything that you do. You have some people who just fly with things, and some people who just don't do it. And so the real question in terms of how effective it will be is how you move the middle and where the middle goes. And that's going to take a lot of work. That's going to take a lot of professional development, but more importantly, it's just going to take an open mind and a willingness to see things a little bit differently and embrace things, take risks. We try to teach our kids to be risk takers, but now we're going to have to really create very supportive environments for our faculty to be risk takers as well. And I think if we can accomplish that, we're going to be in great shape. It doesn't help us that APPR is in play. It doesn't help us that a really horrible teacher evaluation system is fighting us. It's definitely the enemy, and but I think we have to create the best buffer that I'm talking on the administrator side now. We have to create the best buffer that we can between teachers who are trying to do good on behalf of kids and the ridiculousness of the state and federal mandates to vilify teachers and try to root them out unjustifiably. And I think if we can accomplish that, then we'll have a fighting chance of doing some really great things.
Yeah, well, I know one of the concerns teachers are always going to have is how do you monitor what the students are doing on the devices? And I do believe that there might be I've heard some possibilities of where teachers can control or lock the devices. But I
Hmm.
thought it was funny, one of the students on the panel, because they had asked the students a lot of different questions about utilizing technology. And one of the kids says, well, if you don't want me to be on Bleacher Report, give me something engaging to work on and I won't be on Bleacher Report.
Well, I mean,
And
from the mouths of babes, that is the most important thing, right? If it's not
right.
engaging, it doesn't matter if you gave them a $5 notebook or $1,000 MacBook Pro. They're just not going to be interested, or they'll be off doing their own thing.
I just believe it's such an exciting time because, in addition to all the educational benefits of utilizing these devices in the classroom, I really believe it's a money saver and a time saver. The days of having to photocopy tests hopefully are going to be over,
Hmm.
photocopying handouts are going to be over. Kids can submit their tests on a number of platforms in the classroom. They'd be instantly graded for the teachers. I utilized that with Schoology last year,
Hmm.
and I think that's a big money savings. Scantrons alone, I know, are very expensive.
Oh my God.
Yeah, So I'm really very very excited about it, and I understand that it's going to be a transition, and it could be a rocky transition. But again, that's why when I came away from this conference with that those guys from Kite Learning, I said I really
Mhm.
think they hit this on the head. This is a great opportunity for schools to give teachers that platform that they need to learn how to
Right.
utilize everything in the right way. And I guess I didn't mention to you, it can be the cost is pretty. I thought it was pretty cheap, but the cost can be either school wide or a teacher can do this individually. So I think they have a good program, and it's a critical time for schools to be investing this money and getting getting their dollars worth for it.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that we have some people listening who are thinking that we're in the dark ages because they've made this
Right.
transition a few years ago at this point. So we are a little bit behind, behind on in the times. But I know there are some districts that haven't even gotten as far as we've gotten. So it's a transition period for sure. And I know you said that, but I just did a professional development session for some teachers in my school, and I'm trying to em- help them embrace the changes that are coming and talking about using the cloud to enhance how they plan and how they collaborate with themselves and how they collaborate with students. And I'm introducing things that have been around for a while, but they're just not familiar with Dropbox and Google Docs and other types of collaborative tools. And I was trying to sell them on the and my little motivation into the PD was basically like, why are we still relying on physical things to in a sense transport digital files or digital things? And we just don't do that anymore. We don't do that with our music. We don't do that with our movies. All the things that we used to consume and have CDs and CD racks and DVD racks, and we used to have all those physical things, and we don't have that anymore. We have Netflix, we have iTunes, we have Hulu, we have Amazon Prime, so we have access to everything and more. But we just don't, in a sense, want to hang on to those physical things anymore because there's just no need. And I basically use the analogy: if you could pack your suitcase in your bedroom and fill it with your things, and then just walk out of your house, leave the suitcase there, and arrive at the hotel, wherever it is that you're going in Europe, and go into your hotel room and open up a suitcase, and all of your things are there waiting for you. And if you could, you know, pack some more things in there and just close the suitcase and then show up at home and they're waiting for you when you get home. That's what the cloud is. You don't have to drag the suitcase with you and get the hernia along the way. And but yet we have teachers who are carrying that, those satchels or those bags filled to the rim with student work, filled to the rim with their plan books and textbooks and everything else. And there's no need to do that anymore. They could make their lives easier and more efficient and work smarter, not harder. And that is a mindset change, and we have to help people embrace the value and the benefits of it.
And it takes time. In
It
fair,
definitely takes
yeah,
time.
it takes time and tremendous organization. As somebody who does embrace technology quite a bit and still has a bag full of stuff.
Oh,
So,
there's no escaping it completely necessarily, but well, maybe there is, but I don't want to take your security blanket away from you. But the reality is that, especially with the new technology, and you were actually talking about locking things down and having control. We had some teachers who just went to the Apple headquarters in New York. Their little secret labyrinth there. They let us in, and they came back so excited because they got to see the new 9.3 operating system for the iPad and how it has all kinds of enhanced features for education platforms on the Mac, and they said it's absolutely mind blowing and incredible. And all of those different concerns about not having control and will the inmates be running the asylum with their iPads and so on, all those answers have been solved and more by this new update, which is not coming out. I think they just launched beta today for 9.3. So you got to figure it'll be a couple more months before it's ready to go for everybody, but it's exciting. And especially with, I don't know if you've seen the Apple Pencil yet, but it's just an extraordinary device. And it has, I know your Surface has the stylus, but that's like having a ballerina with a club foot trying to dance toe. The Apple Pencil is so precise and such a beautiful tool. And I think people will be very excited when they get those in their hands and get to see what it could do.
Yeah, well, I think the best way to describe this is that I believe a lot of teachers will be very excited to begin next year. And what more could you ask for than that? I think it's a very exciting time for us and for teachers all over the country. It's a great moment. And now I just want to go out and get the Apple Pencil because apparently you said it'll it'll
Great.
change my life.
Great. It's amazing. I saw a demo of it, and I watched a couple of videos online from the Apple website, which is just propaganda at its finest. And but I fall for it every time. They just know how to make the video to whet my appetite, and then more importantly, they know how to deliver on the other end. I know I'm very biased, and we do not get any kind of cut from Apple, certainly for this promotion, but it's just incredible, and I think it's going to be a real game changer for teachers who want to be able to make that transition, but just felt like the stylus wasn't an accurate enough tool to use in order to make those, to feel like they're really working with a pen and a pencil and writing comments on a student's paper.
Right.
And I think this will change all of that. I hope, and they'll feel very comfortable making that transition. And that's all you could hope. You just want it to be so easy and so user friendly and organic that it just makes the transition perfect. Otherwise, if you have to start, downloading drivers and taking all kinds of professional development classes on how to use the pencil, and then it's not going to work because people will just stick with what they have, and understandably so.
Yeah. Well, great discussion, Mark. It's got me, like I said, very excited to begin next year.
Yeah, well, we still have to finish this year. You can't just go into next year.
Always got to think ahead.
By the way, just because I haven't had my obligatory Hamilton reference yet today, but did you catch any of Lin-Manuel Miranda and the cast's performance at the White House last?
I did. Absolutely. Very impressive as always.
I just felt robbed when they cut it off after the second number and they didn't get to, Chris Jackson's performance, which I heard was extraordinary. At least that's what they said on Twitter. But I guess we'll have to wait for the documentary in the fall in order to catch that.
One of my students sent me a message last week that one of the songs from Hamilton was on the radio. And I didn't know what was more impressive, that a song was on the radio or that there was somebody listening to the radio.
Was it Sirius Radio? Was it on Broadway?
Actually, I don't think so. I think it was the actual radio.
Seth Rudetsky show. So I had to throw that in there because I think I'm obligated to do that at this point. But if you'd like to follow us on the web, you can do so at stateofedpodcast.com. We're also available in the iTunes store. Please subscribe to us, write a comment, give us a rating. A good rating would be very nice, of course. Just remember that, as my mother said, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all. But otherwise, please feel free to follow us there. If you'd like to find links to what we discussed, I'll have that on the show notes for you. Also, we still need to do a better job on Twitter. We're just not doing enough there, so I apologize for that. But if you do want to follow us, it's at SOE Podcast. And you can email us and suggest a topic or ask a question or just leave a comment. Ask at stateofedpodcast.com. And I'm happy to announce that I was able to confirm it with the organizers that we are going to be taking our show on the road in October, and we're going to be doing podcasts, a series of podcasts from Ed Camp, which is going to be in Nassau County come this October. And we're very, very much excited to do that. It's a full-day conference. We're expecting several hundred educators, and we're going to get to talk to a whole bunch of them, and it's going to be an incredible experience for us, and I'm very much looking forward to it. So Nick is looking forward to getting his iPencil or his Apple Pencil, and I'm looking forward to EdCamp, and it's going to be great. So that's our show for this week. Thank you again, Nick. I very much appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks, Mark. Take care.
Have a good one.